Fashola reportedly found hidden camera on the Lekki scene of the Lekki shooting. I would like to ask, what are your thoughts on that?
I would rather not wish to comment on this matter, seriously.
Knowing fully well that the place was actually, it's been, taken care of by Loma agencies, and no one found that. And then of recent, we saw our honorable minister, and then he found it. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I would rather not wish to comment on this, seriously.
Okay, moving forward, let's keep that. Moving forward, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Umar Farouk, was very sure of the fact that palliatives got to every Nigerian. And then of recent, we saw a lot of palliatives in different warehouses. And then she came out and then she made a statement, and then she said God had actually vindicated her, that she wasn't the problem of the country. Now, what do you make of that statement?
I do not think that any single individual, whether in government or out of government, is a problem of this country. We are all collectively guilty because in one way or the other, we have elected to neglect what we should do, especially those that are serving as public officials. Now, to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, I do not think that because palliatives were found in warehouses belonging to state governments and the FCT administration means she has been exonerated. These palliatives that we have seen thus far are those of the COVID. That's palliatives that were distributed by private organizations, private concerns, led by Alhaji Dangote, that came together to do this. Now, the question remains, where are those of the federal government? And I do not think, the problem for most public officials is that they lack the ability to properly communicate, to properly use the right phrases and words. You can't say palliatives go to every Nigerian. I, for one, did not receive palliative from the federal government. There are people in my neighborhood where I live that didn't get. There are people in my village that didn't get. So if you say most Nigerians probably did get, one could say, oh, the possibility does exist because you're saying most, majority. But to say all, that is why I have issues with. But I think there is need for a forensic audit of how palliatives were distributed and if actually these palliatives
were actually distributed.
Yes.
Okay, now moving forward, the National Human Rights Commission sets up a panel to address the concerns of the citizen on the EndSARS protest, that's the Lekki toll gate shooting. How should we expect the panel to carry out its functions, knowing fully well that the same panel are being set up across the state and FCT, and how much of accountability should we expect?
You see, these panels, judicial panels, are very necessary because they give the hope that justice will be served to those that have been abused, those that have suffered one loss or the other in the hands of the police or security forces. We need national healing. You understand? When South Africa emerged from the throes of apartheid, what did they do? A Truth and Reconciliation Committee. When Rwanda had the genocide in 1994, what did they do? A Truth and Reconciliation Committee. Nigeria has failed to reconcile with the past. You must make peace with the past to find growth and development. So these judicial panels are welcome. I remain optimistic that at the end of the day, people should account for their crimes, and those that have been wrongly accused will be vindicated, and all of us can have closure over this matter.
Talking about closure, let me cut you a bit. Talking about closure, do you think we are going to find more instruments for investigation at the Lekki toll gate shooting?
Well, just
Just
today,
like someone
yes.
found camera.
No, just today being Friday, the 29th, right?
Yes.
Yes, the panel was at the Lekki toll gate and they found bullet casings. You understand? There is no end to finding through the rubble and debris because there are manholes within that area. There are bullet markings on the walls. Some could be buried, lodged into the wall. So it is never too late. But I think that beyond the Lekki toll gate issue, we should look at the bigger picture of where do we go from here.
Now, yeah, let me cut you a bit. Now, looking at the bigger picture, going from wherever we are to where we want to get to, do you think the instruments found by Fashola at the Lekki toll gate shooting should be, or would be, or could be an instrument for investigation?
Well, I do not have access to that, so I will not comment on it.
Okay, now the internet is the first thing that humanity has built and that humanity doesn't really understand. Now, the largest experiment in anarchy that we've ever had is the internet. This is a statement according to Eric Schmidt. Now, I'm going to ask, based on what has been happening on the headlines this week, that the internet should be curtailed or be scrapped off in Nigeria. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, societies evolve by the reason that you give free expression to thoughts, to conscience, and to expressions. That is how society is built. If the church, as at then, tried as much as possible to stop the advancement of knowledge and could not, that means it is anti-progress, anti-development to say that you want to regulate, stop the internet or whatever.
Okay, but hold your thought a bit. Now, let me bring this back. The internet is the first thing that humanity has built, that humanity doesn't really understand. The largest experiment in anarchy that we've ever had. Now, there is an advantage to the internet, and there is also a disadvantage to the internet. Do you think that was what Desmond Elliot, Honorable Desmond Elliot, was probably implying at the State House?
No, let me make this thing. Let me make this very clear. There is nothing that man has ever conceived that does not have its downside.
Okay.
There is nothing. Now, there is no absolute liberty anywhere.
Okay.
Either you self-regulate or the state regulates you. You understand? And I know that there are individuals that have access to the internet, social media, whatever it's called, that have demonstrated huge capacity for self-censorship. There are others that have not done so. Do we now throw the baby away with the bathwater? The answer is obviously no. We must find a consensus. How do we go forward from what is happening? Now, when Nigeria went to war in 1967, there was little or no internet in our country, but the war was fought. When Nigeria went through a series of economic and social crises, the medicinal crisis, riots, and all of that, the internet had nothing to do with those. You get it? So we must be very careful. That is why we must interrogate history to know that there are upheavals in this country that were not absolutely connected to the internet, to social media, but they did happen. That is human evolution. It happened. There are times in history when there are social dislocations in every country, in every sphere. It happened. And it is not in any way tied to the rise of the internet or social media. It is just a natural progression of things.
Okay, all right. Now, according to, you've made mention of evolution. Now, let's hit a little on that evolution according to Will Durant. As soon as liberty is complete, it dies in anarchy. Now, let's relate this to what is happening currently in Nigeria. Do you think Nigerian youths are crying out for liberty, even for social media's sake?
No, it isn't about the issue of crying for liberty. I think it is the issue of redirecting governance for the benefit of the people. We must get this very clear. Nigerian youths have their voices have been heard. That is why, for instance, we saw that government responded in disbanding the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. You get it? Nigerian youth, if you look through history, have always, whether when the military came into power, the people that took over power at the time were basically youths. We had ministers that were just 29 years of age. We had governors that were 31 years. How old was Gowon when he became head of state, military of the state? How old was the late Murtala Mohammed when he became head of state? So we must look at these issues critically. It isn't about a cry for liberty or for uncensored opportunities.
Now, let me get your take straight. What is your take on curtailing the social media?
I think that if we continue to push these narratives, some of the persons we find in government today will not be in government, because if you had curtailed social media, they would not have had the freedom and the opportunity to sell and to canvass and to push and to insist that they should be voted for.
All right, Emmanuel, that's it. We'll definitely come back to you. And that's it on the headlines for now. You can always catch us online, our website, www.publicintelwithdakore.org has more security stories. You can send us an email, interact with us using publicintelwithdakore@gmail.com. Connect with us on all social media platforms. On Instagram and Facebook, it is at Public Intel with Dakore. On Twitter, it is PI with Dakore. And on YouTube, it is Public Intel space with Dakore. We'll go on a short break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about Operation Awashe. That's a Southwest operation. And our guest is still very much in the studio. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.